Well, there's been a lot of conversation around Bo Bichette. Will he return to the Toronto Blue Jays? Will he go somewhere else? What's the price going to be? Whole lot to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Bo Bichette. I mean, it's the biggest conversation going on in Toronto right now. Will Bo Bichette return? Will he not? We talked about Kyle Tucker yesterday and the potential that he could be coming to Toronto, or some reports are saying the Blue Jays are eyeing him up. But I think, as we all know, Bo Bichette is the #1 target and should be the #1 target. There has been some rumors coming out about potential Yankees and some other teams. How does Bo Bichette feel about this? How do we feel about all of this? It's going to be a big episode. Tomorrow, Carter, we are going to get into some Japanese players and some guys coming over, some guys that might have some impact. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow as well. There's a big one. I think me and Carter are somewhat on the same page on some of the conversations in regards to that. But Carter, today we'll start to focus on Bo Bichette. I guess let's kick things off like this. How do you feel? Are you feeling positive right now about Bo Bichette's potential return?
I think you have to be. When you watch Bo Bichette, you look at what he has meant to this clubhouse. You look at what he said throughout the media. Again, this has been spun a few different ways throughout the previous years. I still remember the one where he's rumored that his friends were saying that he didn't want to come back to Toronto, which was absolutely ridiculous. But I'm going to listen to Bo Bichette himself. I'm going to listen to what he has said about Toronto and his want to come back to Toronto. And he said it time and time again throughout the years. And I guess it's free agency. And if you're Bo Bichette right now, you should be testing your other options. You should be on the open market. You should be looking at what other teams are going to pay you just to get your market value. If the Blue Jays are going to stiff you a little bit, if they're going to, lowball you, that's all completely up to him and his prerogative if he wants to leave. But I don't think that Ross Atkins and this front office is going to do that for Bo Bichette. So obviously, for Blue Jays fans, if you've been watching Bo Bichette, even if you were watching him in 2024, some people were out on him. The majority of the fan base were not out on him because we know how good Bo Bichette is. It's obvious that everybody wants Bo Bichette back on this team. I guess the real question is, how realistic is it that Bo Bichette will re-sign with the Toronto Blue Jays?
Yeah, Carter, that is the big question. And we could sit here and spin this a million different ways, and we'll talk about, obviously, the importance that he has been to this Toronto Blue Jays organization. But at the end of the day, I've been saying this a lot, and I will continue to say this throughout the offseason. We don't have a crystal ball. As much as we want to sit here and believe that, Bo Bichette's on the plane back to Toronto, we've seen how this stuff can go before. But I have this in very high hopes. I do think, I've said this from last offseason until now, that Bo Bichette will be a Toronto Blue Jay, potentially for the rest of his career. He's going to want to play with Vlad. And Carter, that's sort of where I wanted to start, is not necessarily how much we want Bo Bichette back, but I think, how much he wants to be here. He said it, like you said, time and time again, that he wants to win with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. These two guys have come up through the system together, played together their entire careers. I think these are two guys that now, after watching the potential that happened in 2025, want to win and have that drive to do it together. And you see the close bond between these two players. And, there was questions asked about how many franchise players can you have? I believe it was in the Ross Atkins media availability. And he sort of says, there's not just one franchise player in a lot of places. In some places, yes, there's the one staple. But I think here in Toronto, as we have grown up with this team, Carter, and some of these players alongside them, understanding that Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are the cornerstones, right? They're the key pieces. They're the guys that jerseys fly off the shelves every year. Yes, you might have the guys like David Schneider and Ernie Clement and Addison Barger and Nathan Lucas that come in, and people want theirs. But consistently, it will be the Bo Bichettes and the Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s that fly off the shelves. And that's for good reason. These are the two best players. I mean, Bo Bichette was 3 hits away from leading the league once again in hits. And this was only because he missed the last 2 weeks with injury. Otherwise, he would have had it. And I know he,
It
that
was
lost
almost
a
a
lot of
full
people
month.
some money.
September 6th was his last game.
Yeah.
So that's like 3 weeks, almost a month.
Yeah, exactly. So he was right there. This is a guy that just continually does exactly what you expect of him. Yes, he had one down year when he was plagued with injuries, but at the end of the day, he's led this league in hits. He can produce. He can drive in RB. He's an RBI machine. He can hit home runs. He can slap balls to the opposite field. He is a sort of complete player. I mean, obviously, I think everybody wants the defense to be a little bit better. And Carter will get into where he plays. If it's shortstop, second base, I don't think he's a third baseman. But there's going to be some question marks around that and how that'll affect his salary. So I just think in the grand scheme of things, this is a guy you absolutely want to bring back. And I think you want to keep the players in this organization happy as well. And I think there's nobody more that wants to win with Bo Bichette than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who you just signed to a massive deal that kicks in this coming season, Carter.
Yeah, and speaking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are pretty much like brothers. They grew up in the minor leagues together. They've grown up in their major league careers together. So I have a quote here from Bo Bichette just about his time with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and then his optimism about the future. He says, "When I had time to think about what I want, basically my ultimate goal is really to play with Vladdy Guerrero Jr., again, that's in quotations forever, to win a championship with him and to do that with this organization. I'm 100% committed to doing whatever it takes to accomplish those things. That's where I'm at." Bo Bichette was asked after Game 7, probably the worst time to ask him about, his free agency after, a very painful World Series loss. But even he said, hey, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I've said this, time and time again. I've never faltered. I've said that I wanted to remain in Toronto for my entire career. And Keegan Matheson had a comment on this as well. Multiple different insiders, Ben Nicholson-Smith, Shai Davidi. I could go down the list, but I decided to go with Keegan Matheson because I like this quote. He says that over his time with Bo Bichette has said over and over and over for years, both before and after the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension, that he wants to be here and he wants to be with the Toronto Blue Jays permanently. Like at this point, if Bo Bichette might be like the grandmaster of lying to all of Blue Jays fans if he does not want to sign with the Toronto Blue Jays, if he's not at least entertaining offers from the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, it's not an absolute shoe-in. Like the Toronto Blue Jays can't go it off from an 8-year, $100 million deal and do what the Tigers are doing to Tyler Skubal and expect him to come back. You're going to have to fork over the money. Bo Bichette is worth that money. Whether he is a shortstop, third baseman, second baseman, DH, center fielder, I don't care where you play this guy. Defense isn't really what you're paying for. You're paying for that bat. And we look at throughout this lineup how important Bo Bichette has been when he has been in this lineup and when he hasn't been in this lineup. You can tell there is a massive hole just even around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You're able to pitch around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a lot more easily if you don't have to worry about Bo Bichette behind him. So Bo and Vladdy have been talking about how much they love each other for years, how much they love this organization, this clubhouse. And I really don't expect things to change too much when Bo Bichette literally has reiterated this time and time again for years.
Yeah, Carter. And I mean, even, with all the Nightingale stuff that has come out, a quote that came out from there was that he expects Bo Bichette 1,000% to re-sign with the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, like you said, the Blue Jays have to give him a understandable offer. Like they can't shoot themselves in the foot here. But as long as the money's close, I think Bo Bichette will make that turn and stay with the Toronto Blue Jays. And Carter, I just want to go back over a couple of his stats sort of throughout the years. And I'll go back to, obviously, he had a fantastic season in 2021, posting a 5.9 WAR. He had 102 RBIs that year with 29 home runs. We said, like, Bo Bichette's probably never going to be the 35 home run guy. If he can give you 25 home runs, that's a great spot to be in. 2022, he had 24 home runs with 93 RBI. 2023, 20 home runs with 73 RBI. And then obviously 2024 was the down season, only playing in 81 games that year, posting only 4 home runs and 31 RBI. But then he comes back this season with 94 RBIs and 18 home runs. Just unbelievable. I mean, in 3 of his past 5 years, Carter, he's had 191 hits, 189 hits, 175 hits, and 181 hits. Obviously, only, the only down year being the 2024 season. But I think we all saw that was all because of injury. This guy puts up unbelievable numbers and numbers that, to me, suits this lineup very well. They want Vladdy hitting in the 3-hole, which puts the exact right guy to hit in number 4, and that's Bo Bichette. He's an RBI machine, and he comes up with very good clutch hitting. He's very good with runners in scoring position. This is a guy you want in that spot. And you mentioned it earlier in this episode, Carter, that when he wasn't in this lineup, you did feel like there was going to be holes. It was a lot harder to get those RBIs in. When at some points when Bo Bichette's playing, it's like, oh, Bo Bichette's up when there's 2 runners on, second and third. It's like, oh, he's probably going to cash one of those in for sure because that he just does a job. And it's tough to argue with numbers like this, Carter. And as a Blue Jays fan, not want him back. And I think if anybody's out there saying they don't want Bo Bichette back, I don't know, you might have to get your head checked a little bit. Like I will not believe that there's people out here that don't want Bo Bichette back.
Yeah, how could you not want that bat in your lineup? You brought up the scoring position of a 1,053 OPS with runners in scoring position. Taking that every single day of the week. Like it's just ridiculous. Whether he hits 2 or 4, again, that's a debate that hopefully we get to have ongoing discussions about throughout the years, whether he's preferred in that number 2 or maybe that more typical run producing spot in the number 4 hole in that cleanup spot. But Bo Bichette is vital to this team's success. Bo Bichette has been, again, for us, for young fans, for people getting into baseball, he's been idolized. He's been one of those guys that you look up to, especially as a young kid. If I was, 8 years old, 9 years old, even, whatever you are right now in terms of age, looking up to Bo Bichette, I still look up to Bo Bichette, and I'm almost the same age as him. So this is a guy that's just been a pleasure to watch throughout the years. Him and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., just the way they interact. Again, Bo Bichette with the amount of quality at-bats he has, the ability to just, the inside-out swing, flick the hands inside, shoot the ball to the right field corner. It's just incredible. And what he did in the World Series as well, just further encapsulizes that. I mean, going on into that series, honestly, on one knee, didn't really have his knee, especially in the first few games. Made some crazy progress, probably on a bunch of pain meds as we progress throughout that World Series. But this team is going to feel a whole lot different if Bo Bichette does not come back and return to the Toronto Blue Jays colors in the Blue Jay Blue, especially if he goes to one of the other teams that are rumored to be in the stakes with Bo Bichette. We talked about the Kyle Tucker stuff. Unfortunately, it's very similar with Bo Bichette, as we talked about with aggressiveness of owners, just, the payrolls, things like that. Unfortunately, when you have these big free agents, there's only a select few teams that are a part of these encounters and a part of these kind of chases to sign these free agents. But luckily for us, and luckily for the Toronto Blue Jays fans, we are one of those teams that will have an opportunity every single year to sign one of these big free agents, and hopefully we can start it all with Bo Bichette. Let's get that one fish. I don't care about Shohei. I don't care about Juan Soto, Corbin Burns. Let's get Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. back in Blue Jay Blue.
Yeah, I can't argue that, Carter. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about what a Bo Bichette contract looks like to us, what we expect it to be, and obviously Carter will break down some of the teams that are interested in Bo Bichette a little bit as well. There was a little bit that came out on the New York Yankees and potentially Bo Bichette landing spot there. And how do we feel about that coming out? We'll talk about all that right after this short break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by the fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at the checkout, it's frustrating. You guys definitely know about the queues if you were trying to get World Series tickets for the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed up by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included so that the price you see is the price you pay. You don't have any of those, mysterious fees, closing costs. It's almost like you're buying a house with all the random costs that they're throwing in. Game Time is very upfront about what you're paying, and you are definitely going to get your money's worth. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Today's episode also brought to you by Doer. And you guys know I've been talking about it for a while. I was waiting for my jeans to come in. I bought some jeans, bought some shirts, and wow, I'm not going to lie to anybody. They are fantastic. It's the material, to be honest with you. I expect when you buy jeans, you expect jeans, but it's just a lot more comfortable. It's sort of like a stretchy jean material. It combines classic jean wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, so it's not uncomfortable to be in all day long. I like jeans. I like to every day. I wear jeans, but these ones are a whole heck of a lot more comfortable. Let me tell you that. Designs, they look absolutely fantastic, and you stay comfortable all day, no matter what you're doing. Doer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. The inventor of the original performance denim. Trust me, once you try these, you'll be good to go. You can check out Doer in store here in Toronto. It's at 44 Ossington Ave. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. The holiday is right around the corner, so you might want to get in on that now. You can mention our promo code Locked On Toronto in store to get 15% off your first order, or you can check them out online at duer.ca/Locked On Toronto. That's for 15% off. That's doer.ca/Locked On Toronto. So, Carter, continuing on, obviously, I want to talk a little bit about the Bo contract before we talk about potential landing spots outside of Toronto, I guess, if we have to. But I think it's smart if we're here. We can't just assume that everybody's coming to Toronto as much as we want to do that. There are other teams that will be in talks and be involved with Bo Bichette. So, I'll start it here. I sort of put the AAV for Bo Bichette around the $27-ish million a year mark. I'm expecting an 8-year deal on that. So, do if you want to do the math, there you go. I haven't actually done it myself, but there you go. 27 per year on about an 8-year deal. That would put Bo Bichette right around I believe he would be 36 at that time of that final deal. So it's interesting, at least, to try to think about. No, I guess you'd be 38. My bad. Or no, 36 is right. 36. That's right. Do the math. Yeah.
36 would be a lot closer. I'll get it. I'll do the math behind the scenes here for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the only reason I come to that figure myself is that I don't think they're going to give Bo Bichette. He is a year older than Vladdy. They're probably not going to want to pay him into his late 30s. So, I think that 36 year mark is probably an understandable one. And I don't think that the Blue Jays themselves will pay Bo Bichette $30+ million a year. I just don't see that happening. I think it is going to be around the $250 million mark in totality. That's what some reports were saying. Some reports were coming out earlier last year or in last year's offseason that had Bo Bichette around 150 to 200 million. Now it's looking like more than that. That's what I predicted a long time ago was the 250 million. I think it was in last offseason just by seeing where the market was going. Again, precedents have been set. Market has been raised. And that's potentially why I'll go back to a little bit of something that I talked about earlier in yesterday's episode. The lockout is happening because money is flying off the books. And that's just going to keep happening with you got guys wanting to keep getting the next biggest contract. And this comes down to Bo Bichette as well.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about a term necessarily with Bo Bichette. This guy, I'll give you the exact day because, Baseball Reference does that for us. He's 27 years old and 251 days on top of that as well. So if you wanted to do it like in a dynasty format, I'm a big NFL guy. He'd be like 27.6 years old, whatever you wanted to call it. So there you go. He'll be about mid-30s, 35 and a half if you sign an 8-year contract pretty much today. So with Bo Bichette, again, you're not too worried about age. Like Bo Bichette, as advertised, the player that he is, he probably won't age, well necessarily because he's already not great, at running. Doesn't have, the most range out there. But I think with the bat, just ability to put the bat on the ball and shoot the ball the other way, that is not going to falter whatsoever. The bat and ball skills are pretty much always going to be there up until, you get to the age 36, 37. Again, when you get older, things happen. But I'm not too worried about term necessarily for Bo Bichette. You kind of put out that 27 AAV on Bo Bichette, and I like to do the Willy Adames contract comparison when we talk about Bo Bichette. I think Bo Bichette is better than Willy Adames, but that's a pretty good starting point. Willy Adames is on a 7-year, $182 million contract. That puts him right at that 27 million AAV. So with Bo Bichette, if my kind of dream contract, and this is what I would like, is 7 to 8 years between the $200 and $250 million mark. That does project to be probably a shortstop figure. Again, with Bo Bichette, I think where he's at is he's okay with playing third base, second base, wherever, but he probably still wants to be paid like a shortstop. And when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays and you look at their roster construction, it makes a lot more sense if Bo Bichette does sign as a second baseman and plays second base rather than that shortstop position, because Andres Gimenez, a guy that has a contract that I'm not necessarily in love with. I think a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans won't be in love with it either, making over $15 million for the next 5 years. And if you're not playing shortstop, if you're not, at least providing that defensive upside at probably the most valuable position in the outfield, infield. You could debate it's catcher, you can debate it's center fielder, but shortstops get paid for the defense because it's a very hard position to play. So in terms of Bo Bichette and just his projectability, I think he would be a lot safer as a second baseman. You don't have to worry about the defense as much. And I want to talk about third base as well. You kind of brought it up at one point in this episode. I do not like the prospect of moving Bo Bichette to third base. Already a guy that isn't advertised as the greatest defender. They call it the hot corner for a reason. A lot of the time when Bo Bichette is making his errors, it is on the throw. That's a longer throw. The ball's coming at you a little bit quicker. I just don't necessarily like the prospect of Bo Bichette playing third base. And again, third base is a little bit or a lot more different than shortstop shortstop to second base is. I think the transition to second base is a lot easier. He still gets to make those turns. We get to see the Bo to Vladdy for eternity, hopefully, which would also be a very big incentive as well. So if he's signing with the Toronto Blue Jays, I prefer him to be at second base. But for you, do you think that where he plays and where teams want him to play is going to affect that contract? And do you think that Bo Bichette has a specific position in his mind where he would prefer that over anything else?
Yeah, I think he wants to be a shortstop. I don't think that's lost on anybody here in these conversations. I think he's okay with playing second base. I don't want him at third base either. I said that earlier. That's an absolute no-go for me. But in saying that, I think you're at the point now where you pay Bo Bichette as a shortstop, and then whatever comes from there, you do. And I think that's what this is having to become, because he can play shortstop. It's not like he absolutely can't do it. You're paying a second baseman that's primarily a second baseman and doesn't have the bat for a shortstop premium. That's not what you're doing. You're paying Bo Bichette's elite bat to be somewhere in your infield. Just get him in the lineup. That's pretty much what it is. So I don't really think it matters. I think he's going to be looked at as a shortstop. And if a team wants to put him at second, they'll put him at second. But I think if a team is going to put Bo Bichette at second base, I think it's going to be with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think if he goes somewhere else, I think he's going to want that shortstop position because he has a little bit about that team friendliness here. And can play with guys and is willing to do that for this organization. I don't know if he would be willing to do that for a new organization. That's just, again, my little piece of all this, but that's what I'm seeing because I think this guy at the end of the day wants to be a shortstop.
Yeah, this all really comes down to what Bo Bichette wants. Does he want the money? Does he want to play shortstop? Is that what he set on? Does he want to win? I think a lot of that we've already kind of seen as Toronto Blue Jays fans with Bo Bichette being in the media. I just wanted to say, again, not a math guy. It's $26 million AAV for that Willie Adames contract. You might have been talking about it in the comment section, whatever. It is what it is. You got to give me a benefit of the doubt. I'm still not feeling the greatest. But anyway, that's my excuse. But moving on with the Bo Bichette stuff, you need Bo Bichette back. That's just simply where it's at. I completely agree with you. I think that he probably wants to sign as a shortstop, but we've seen it with the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Toronto Blue Jays fit personally. It makes way more sense to have Bo Bichette as a second baseman. Again, for me, I don't really care where he plays defensively. I prefer him at second base. If he plays third base, I don't love it, but whatever. We need this guy's bat. And that's why you're signing Bo Bichette. You don't really care too much about where he's playing defensively. Yes, you want him to be serviceable. You don't want him to make, the obvious errors. I think that's why second base makes the most sense, because out of all the infield positions, I think second base compared to shortstop and third base is probably the easier position. You guys can debate with me in the comments as well on that one. But the bat is the biggest thing. The bat is what is advertised. This is a guy that just wakes up and pretty much leads the league in hits day in and day out. So this is a guy that I want to be with the Toronto Blue Jays for a very long time. And now just looking at the current state of the Toronto Blue Jays, even this year compared to the way it was last year, having Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette as those building blocks with the supplementary pieces that you already do have. We can talk about JoJo Parker, Arjun Amala, those guys being able to play with guys like Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Even the guys on the roster right now, Addison Barger, who's looked very good, Jake Bloss, who's kind of in the wings, Ricky Tiedemann, Trey Savage, obviously, who set the league on fire. It's a lot more projectability if you sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. And as a fan base, it's a lot more fun watching a team that's going to compete and you're pretty sure is going to be aggressive in the trade market, in free agency market, and really try to win. So as a fan, especially as a Carolina Panthers fan, the way that things are going on over there, Vancouver Canucks, I kind of need the Blue Jays to be good for my mental health. It's a lot more fun watching a team that's trying to win rather than the Pittsburgh Pirates or, the Miami Marlins, a team that just doesn't really want to spend. It really just doesn't necessarily have a direction. So I think if you sign Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has already kind of done this, but if you sign Bo Bichette, this confirms to me that the Toronto Blue Jays are for real. If it wasn't confirmed already after that World Series run, but I think this confirms that they're going to be a competitive baseball team for the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, Carter, we're going to come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of the other places and some rumors going around in regards to Bo Bichette and where else he could land right after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you start to miss the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a bigger shot at a bigger payout. It keeps the game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Trust me, that's what some of my favorite things is to hop in like mid-game. Hey, maybe a bet in the day lost, earlier in the day lost, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I see a little bit of a trend here. I'm gonna pop in and throw some money down during the live game. And that's exactly why FanDuel is so good, because it gives you so many different options during the game to be able to make some money. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So,
Here,
Carter,
Brayden,
I'll go ahead.
In this one, I got something that we didn't really talk about off camera, but I mean, it's definitely fits the picture here. So there is, unfortunately, the real possibility that Bo Bichette does not re-sign with the Toronto Blue Jays. So I kind of just wanted to talk about if this doesn't happen. Again, we really wanted to. If you didn't get that from this podcast, I mean, I'm not sure what you were listening to. We want Bo Bichette to be a Toronto Blue Jay. I'm sure you guys want Bo Bichette to be a Toronto Blue Jay, but you have to be prepared if that unfortunately does not happen. In terms of the market, in terms of where you can pivot, you really don't have a lot of options in the middle infield. So I think what you would be doing is you would be relying in-house. Ernie Clement would be that much more important, as in Barger would be that much more important. When you go to the third base market, there's a little bit more of guys that you can get. There's really only two that I think people would be excited about getting, and that's Alex Bregman, which we'll probably talk about on a future episode, and Eugenio Suarez, who we saw obviously in the ALCS. But in terms, I'm just going to go over middle infielders if the Toronto Blue Jays are not able to re-sign Bo Bichette. At second base, you have Gleyber Torres. That's a guy that, I mean, I don't mind. He had a pretty good year with the Detroit Tigers, especially early on in the year. But after that, it's like Willie Castro. You got Jorge Polanco, obviously significant downgrades. Jose Iglesias, not really going to turn the needle for anyone. Ahmed Rosario, Luis Rengifo, not really going to do it too much. And the number one advertised shortstop, other than Bo Bichette, I don't know what kind of list this is, and I don't even want to say his name, because the guy that unfortunately we did see in the World Series, they have Miguel Rojas as the number one guy at shortstop. They do have Ha-Seong Kim, IKF being the third guy, or fourth guy, I guess, technically with Bo Bichette. Not great. So if you don't get Bo Bichette, Andres Gimenez is probably the shortstop. Ernie Clement still playing second base, because maybe it's Jorge Polanco. Like, that could be a guy that provides you a little bit of upside. But honestly, with the middle infield, it's either Bo Bichette or it's kind of bust at this point.
Yeah, that's not great at all. I'm not going to lie. Like, for other teams looking to go out and get shortstops, there might be a lot of money thrown at Bo Bichette here. This might change. Like, from my projected $250 million or whatever around that zone, who knows where this is going to get? And that's why free agency is always super interesting, because you never know. And some teams may value guys a lot higher, and some teams may value guys a lot lower. And that's where it comes to. So the Toronto Blue Jays are going to have to do their due diligence and find out what is going on in this market, Carter. But what are some other teams that are right now interested in the Bo Bichette conversation?
At this point, like, I almost just at the top of every episode will say, like, hey, these are the teams that are on a big free agent, because it's literally the exact same teams every single time. Like I said, if you're a fan of like the Pirates, even a team like the Brewers, like a team that was very good that doesn't necessarily spend, I could definitely understand how that would be frustrating. We are very lucky as Toronto Blue Jays fans that our front office now, at least in the last few years, has been committed to spending. But the teams that are involved, you already heard it, the New York Yankees. He's already an LA Dodger. If you ask, majority of that fan base, we've still had Dodgers fans in our comment section, which, I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time,
he's not going there. I will put that right out right now. Bo Bichette will not be a Dodger. I will tell you that for sure. The guy will not go there. He's a guy that wants to win and does not like to be beaten. And he was beaten in the World Series by that team. He's not going to the Dodgers. That's going to be a grudge held. I will bet real money that he will not go there.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to win, that's not necessarily a bad place to go. But if you don't want to talk to the media and you want to avoid the media, I mean, if you're Bo Bichette, you probably just avoid free agency. But LA is probably the worst place if you want to try to avoid the media. But hey, you have a lot of guys in front of you that maybe would be able to kind of hide Bo Bichette, which is a crazy thing to say. But anyway, the Yankees, the Dodgers, those are the two names you're going to hear a lot of. I saw an article today that really surprised me. Almost made it seem like it was a shoo-in that Bo Bichette was going to sign with the Detroit Tigers, which really did not make any sense to me. You're not going to pay Tyreek Skubal, but you're going to go out and sign Bo Bichette. I mean, make it make sense to me. But the Giants, you have the Braves, you have the Mets. the Phillies, again, just the most obvious teams of all time, pretty much the top 10 teams in payroll. And then, of course, your Toronto Blue Jays. Bob Nightingale has the Toronto Blue Jays as being favorites, but you can go to a bunch of different websites and go to a bunch of different articles. It's kind of all over the place. And that's what makes this Bo Bichette contract very interesting, because he can be projected in so many different ways. You project him as a shortstop long-term, a second baseman, a third baseman. How good do you think his defense is going to perform down the stretch? Do you think the bat is going to project well as he does age? So I think there could be a lot of varying contracts that Bo Bichette is offered. And then we just went over the market as well. If you're looking for a middle infielder, it's really Bo Bichette. I guess Gleyber Torres, again, I don't want to discredit him completely, but it's Bo Bichette, Gleyber Torres, and that's pretty much it. So I think a lot of money probably will be thrown at Bo Bichette, whether it's from the Toronto Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Dodgers, naming all of the above. But with the Toronto Blue Jays familiarity with what Bo Bichette has said about that clubhouse, I'm not going to say it's 100% confirmed, but I would definitely have the Toronto Blue Jays as the favorites to re-sign Bo Bichette.
Yeah, Carter, I'll quickly go over the betting lines for people on where he is projected. And this is right from TSN. They've posted an article. Toronto Blue Jays at -210. The Atlanta Braves in second at +500. The New York Yankees at +750. The Detroit Tigers +1400. The Colorado Rockies at +1500.
Yeah, that's the Dante Bichette effect.
It's the only, that's really it, because
there's no way he's going to the Rockies. And that would be the biggest, screw you to the Toronto Blue Jays. Hey, I want to win, and I'm going to go to the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. Pretty much the reverse of what happened in the
Dodgers
season.
The Dodgers +1600, the Boston Red Sox, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the San Diego Padres all at +2200. So those are the top ones. There are more, but I mean, if you're going to throw a dark
top payroll team, I think you listed off all 10 of them.
Besides the Rockies, yeah, that's but I mean, if you want to throw a dark horse out there, I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates are on the list at +3500. So
there you go.
Yeah, so there's your dark horse. No, you know what? It's going to be an interesting saga. We'll probably continue to have many conversations in regards to Bo Bichette as this offseason continues and progresses through. But as always, we want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk some Japanese baseball players heading over to the MLB and where they will sign should the Toronto Blue Jays sign them. It's going to be a very interesting story as this one continues as well. I love free agency. It's so exciting to see where guys are going to go. That's like my be a franchise mode on MLB The Show, and I'm sitting there moving guys and for just ridiculously no money. I think
you're just building a powerhouse. Like, you have literally every single all-star that's ever existed in the MLB, and then you're playing, the Colorado Rockies, and then you just, flex on me and you say, oh, I beat the Rockies 99-0, but I have, 9 future Hall of Famers throughout my lineup.
Hey, man, it's called good managing. That's what it is. As always, thanks so much for tuning into the episode. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow.